All right, yeah. So, like I said, man, welcome to Figure Shit Out Show podcast. This is King Arthur. Frank is on a sabbatical. He's away for a little bit. Get your mind right, Frank. We'll be here when you get back. This is episode 106. Episode 106. So, if you don't know, I'm King Arthur. Welcome, guys. Unify and Thrive. Y'all know my name. Y'all know what I'm about. It's gonna be a good summer, good spring. We got a lot of good things coming for y'all. And today we have a guest, Mr. Ryan. How you say your last name?
Christensen.
Christensen. All right. How you doing today?
Doing really well, man. It's a beautiful day.
Absolutely. Where are you located at?
I'm down in Austin, Texas these days. Been here for about 3 years, a little over.
All right. Nice. So I'm over here on the East Coast of Virginia, so we're a few hours different time.
Yeah, well, about an hour. I used to be in DC for about 16, 17 years, so I know Virginia pretty well.
You're native. All right. I'm about an hour from DC, so yeah, okay.
Yeah. That in Richmond or?
In between. I call it the in between. So I'm like in Ruther Glen, so like 30 minutes from Richmond, an hour from DC. So yeah.
Gotcha.
The unknown parts. Everybody knows Richmond, Hampton Roads, or DC. The rest of Virginia is like, ooh, what is that? Yeah. So
exactly.
Like we do with all our guests, we ask everybody this one question, get the conversation flowing and get it started. What is your figuring shit out moment in life? So it could be something that got you thinking different, moving different, or just behaving the way you behave now.
Well, I'll tell you what, like the big thing that shifted things for me that really kind of got everything moving was 2019. I got divorced again, 2018, got in a relationship pretty much right after that ended the summer of 2019. And then I was trying to figure out dating because I hadn't really dated in the normal world for quite a while, like 7-8 years at that point. So Tinder's a thing and Hinge is a thing, and DC dating market just sucks. So it's just not working well for me at all. Right. So it's like, all right, time to figure this stuff out. Right. And gotten some men's groups, started to get into that, trying to figure out the dating thing and the attracting women and all that kind of stuff. And they're really heavily focused on improving your value as a man. Right. And really get a good girl, gotta have the other guy actually be a good man, actually have value and sort that stuff out. That really kind of got me started taking a deeper look at myself. Right. I'd been in therapy for about a decade before that. I had a major depressive episode in 2009 and doing the whole marriage counseling thing and working through that. Right. But there was still a lot of stuff that I just hadn't really taken a look at. So 2019, 2020, I'm doing that. And in 2021, I'm just like, I am done with this. I am freaking done with BS. Like I'm tired. It's like, I will do whatever the hell I need to freaking fix my head because I am tired of it. Right. Because it's like, I can't get what I need. Like I never really have. It's just never really possible for me. And so it's like, I got to figure that out so I can actually get what I need in life, or this ain't worth it. I'm done. So I declared jihad, just like went to freaking war. I went on warpath, man. I just did every damn thing, everything under the sun, the therapy and the coaching and the spiritual retreats, energy stuff and psychedelics and hypnosis. Basically, the only thing I didn't do was acupuncture. Right.
Okay.
and all of it helped. All of it moved the needle forward. All of it created some space. All of it gave me some insight, but nothing really fixes you. And that's a problem because it turns out I'm autistic and I can't pretend that better equals fixed. Can't lie to myself. Right. So it's all right. Got to figure out what the finish line is, get myself across it. So I just kept on going, kept digging. And that's kind of how I built my modality and really went deep in the hypnosis route.
Nice. So the divorce kind of made you take a step back and say, who am I? Right. And
well, it's more the realizing the dating scene wasn't working after it. Right. Because I got divorced, got into a relationship pretty much right after that. And then it wasn't until that ended and I was trying to figure out like the whole dating thing. I was like, wait, this is just not working. Something is clearly off. Something is clearly off. Right. And that's what really started to me. It's like, okay, something's off. It's like, oh, there's definitely some parts about me that are off. There's my understanding of how dating stuff works, but then there's also all the stuff about me that I'm clearly getting wrong. So that's really what the focus on self-improvement in that space was really what got me heavily involved in taking a deeper look at myself and figure out why my mind works the way it does and figuring out why stuff hadn't worked for so long.
So you said you found out you were autistic as an adult?
Yeah, I didn't get diagnosed until I was almost 48.
Oh, wow. That's atypical, I guess, because, nowadays usually we hear about it being diagnosed or being a thing of children or, around the ages of like, I think 5 to like 7 or something like that, right?
Sure.
So,
well, think about this. I grew up in Kansas in the 1970s and 1980s.
Okay.
Right. Okay. There was no internet then.
Right. It really wasn't a thing, right?
Right. And it's like, I grew up in a town that's like 300,000 people. There's not that big mental health resources. There's not that big a thing, right? There's not like a million psychologists running around. The therapy culture wasn't really off at that time, right? That didn't really start until like the late 80s, and nobody was talking about ADHD back then, much less autism.
Right.
So all I knew was that the world works for everybody else just fine. Does not work for me. I can't figure it out. Nobody knows what the hell's wrong with me. Nobody can help me. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just screwed,
Right.
So I gave up on life pretty young. The first time I wanted to end things, I was about 9 years old. That's kind of what drove me down the road towards, being in the Marine Corps and everything else. Is like, I got to give myself a reason to live. So it's like, all right, service to that greater good. That kept me going until about 45 years old. That stopped working when I realized the world does not want to be saved. Right. So clearly, number one, I'm in the wrong line of business. Number two, my reason for living is it doesn't work anymore. Right. So now I got to find another reason to live. And that's really what kind of drove me that road. Like, I have got to find a way to make this work for me and really get what I need in life, or like I'm done.
This right here, this book changed my life. This is the book. This is the one you want to get. If you really want to know what's going on in the world, if you really want to gain the perspective you need to change your outlook, this book, An Elusive Perspective, this is the one that's going to wake you up, help you to see the world for what it truly is. Take the blinders off, look behind the veil, wake up. 11 chapters of knowledge, information, the truth about this planet, about this world, about politics, about abundance, about money. Get this book now, change your life.
Right. So you clearly was a functioning, person in society, right? Yeah. Especially to be a Marine, because they got to be kind of,
yep.
I don't want to say level-headed, but they got to have some kind of discipline and some type of motivation to, to keep moving and keep going through what they go through every day.
Yep. Yep.
So how was that experience, having autism, being a Marine, or in it, but not knowing you have autism, but just going through that type of environment?
Yeah. Well, in addition to autism, I also have ADHD and bipolar disorder, which I also didn't figure out until I was almost 48 years old. Right. That was like, I knew about the ADHD. It's like, okay, let me go ahead and get the ADHD treated, which triggered a bipolar episode, which helped me to figure out that I was autistic afterwards. Like, it's because once I saw the bipolar, that blew up in my face. I'm like, okay, I got to make sure that there's nothing else down there. Let me assume no other landmines. So I got the full psych workup, and it's like, oh, I'm autistic as well. It's like, great. So now I understand how I work. Right. But up until then, like, I had no idea. And it's hard, like the military is a very regimented environment and so forth and so on. I can't really say I was particularly good Marine or good airman. I was good at what I did. I was good at my job, but not particularly good about being a Marine. So it sounds like I was in trouble all the time, but I just like not an environment I really thrived in, but there's a lot of things I took from that environment, right? There's a lot of things about being a Marine that really sets you up for success later in life. Gives you a very different approach to things than normal people. That decision is like, make the thing happen. Doesn't matter what happens, what's in between point A and point B, you just go through it. Right. The idea of like, embrace the suck, right? Yes, it sucks. Yes, it's miserable. Yes. It's not going to get any better. No, there's nothing you can do about it. Do it anyway. Just do it anyway. Right. It's like, it's not going to get better. Just do it anyway. So that was really good. But again, like I said, just not really the environment for me. I was much better off as a contractor in DC doing the intelligence work there. But even then, it was a situation where it's like, I'm really good at my job and really suck at office politics. Right. That's a problem when you're trying to coordinate between agencies and offices. Like, that is not my forte at all. So, got myself fired a couple times because of that. It's like I just, the autism thing, I can't really navigate the situations well. Like, being diplomatic and stuff is not my forte. And then you throw the bipolar on top of that with the emotional volatility and stuff like that. It's just like recipe for disaster, right?
Right.
But I still was able to do some really cool stuff because I'm good at what I do. I'm a pretty smart guy and I'm pretty talented. So I was able to leverage that to do some really amazing things, but just not to figure that out until later in life, man. That was tough because it's just like, I don't know. I couldn't understand why things don't work.
Right. I'm glad you figured it out. And so I kind of understand where you're coming from, because Frank was in the military. I was just a reservist, right? But I did go to boot camp,
right?
And I did train in C school with the Marines, right? But where I come from, I would definitely recommend a lot of people that I grew up with go through boot camp of anything else in C school, just because when I was going through, it taught me a whole lot about myself that I kind of already knew, but I wasn't sure. But then it was like, when I pulled it out, I was like,
yep.
So yeah, and my thing was with the military, like, I only went because it was a suggestion from my mom, and other people were saying maybe you should try this because I didn't have a path. And then when I came out, I was like, when I was in, I was like, oh, I'm kind of the cream of the crop. Not to be, I was just more physically inclined than some of the others. I wasn't the smartest, but I was usually near the top. And then when I did see the extremely smart individuals, they were terrible at the physical activities. Just kind of
Yep.
navigating some of that was like, oh, this is kind of who I am. This is what I'm about. This is the kind of individual I am. And I will always
Yep.
suggest friends who had no path in the direction, not to go in just for a direction or path, but to go and learn about yourself. And
Yeah.
and like you said, I took those skills with me to the through life
Goes
now.
say.
Like me and Frank and I are both ITs, right? So we kind of get your diplomacy issues with dealing with contractors and stuff like that. She's IT and I'm IT as well, a contractor. So I kind of get navigating through some of that. So talk about how you became more mentally healthy, right, after your
Uh,
diagnosis, stuff like that.
well, a lot of the getting mentally healthy piece was pre-diagnosis, right? Like I said, 2019 to 2023, I was doing so much stuff. I kind of
Right.
like wrapped everything up. Like October 22 was like sort of like the capstone of my work. After that, I was pretty set, right? And then the bipolar thing happened in June of 23, and that was a whole different evolution. But the evolution to getting mentally healthy before that, and kind of like getting my head on straight in terms of clearing a lot of those like really deep beliefs out. Those like I'm not good enough and stuff like that. Clearing that out. That was a big evolution, right? Because it was a situation where I get some understanding of things, usually through something like psychedelics. I get a glimpse into something. It's like, all right, then I start taking it apart, and I start seeing signs of it in my clients that I was working with, right? Because I got all these people come to me that I'm working with that have got all kinds of problems. I start seeing patterns in them, and I start figuring out how to fix that thing for them. I was like, oh, then I see that pattern in me. It's like, okay, now I know what I'm working with. Now I have to fix it, right? But it was seeing the patterns in other people and then recognizing the same kind of thing playing out to me that actually let me do that work. But it's kind of frustrating because can't really be a hypnotist and the client at the same time, right? And when you and your mind are at odds with each other, there's not a lot of trust. Like it really just doesn't trust you, so it doesn't really let you change it much. There's big limits to it, right? And like, so I'd be like, oh, I know exactly what the problem is. I know exactly how to fix it. My mind was like, nope, not allowed. Right? So I'd have to go hire somebody else and set up the problem for them in a way that they could use their tools to fix me, which was really frustrating, right? But it was just a process of just like you keep digging, keep asking questions, right? It's like, okay, this is still not working great. I'm obviously looking at this wrong. And the best thing you can do in any situation like this is take a step back and just go, what am I missing? Right. If I was right about what I'm looking at, if I was right about what the problem is, if I'm right about what the approach is, if I'm right about the framework, I would have fixed it. Right. If I did this thing, I should have gotten this result. I did not get this result. Therefore, this does not work the way it's supposed to, or I'm looking at the wrong dang thing. Fair enough. What am I missing? How does this actually work? How did this result that I got actually come from this? Right. And so it's just a matter of like reverse engineering those first principles, figuring out kind of like what the left and right limits are for any technique or any problem set, and just like keep on going, and as long as you keep asking, what am I missing? You're going to figure it out. Right. Even if it's like takes you down a rabbit hole, it's like, oh, this guy's got an answer. Cool. Let me go talk to him. Right. And as long as like my mind was just stubborn to let me die. So it just like kept dragging me along until I figured it out. It's stubborn. It's just like one of those, it's a really frustrating thing. It's like, nope, you're not done yet. You're not. It's like, sorry. Right. But I finished that up. And then, June of 23, I had my bipolar episode. If you don't know, like ADHD medications like Adderall and Ritalin, if you have bipolar disorder, it can trigger a manic episode, right? It can really set you up that thing, right? And so I had an acute manic episode, and it went on long enough that I had a psychotic break. Just completely lost my mind, right? Got arrested, spent a couple of days in jail. 3 misdemeanors and felony charge, felony assault on a peace officer charge.
Do you remember what happened during your episode in your break?
Some of it. Some of it. There's a lot I don't remember. There's a lot that doesn't really make sense. Okay. I remember getting arrested. I don't remember fighting him, but I remember getting arrested. And like things go black, and then now I'm strapped to a gurney, getting thrown into an ambulance. I'm like, okay, something happened. I don't know what it is. So, so there's a lot. I didn't even realize that I was arrested and in jail until the next morning. Didn't actually make sense to me until the next morning. Until I woke up the next morning. But it's like, okay, now there's a whole different problem I got to deal with, right? So spent about almost a year and a half getting the medications dialed in to where like I was stable and I could actually work and function. And that's just that's an ordeal, right?
Yeah.
Because like you try something, things start working for you, so you got some hope, and then all the side effects kick in and mess you up, and it's like, okay, now I got to come off this one and spend some time to get on the next one. And it's just a heck of a roller coaster, right? Like some days, like I was completely not functional. Other days it's like, okay, fine, I can get out of bed, but I can't really think straight. One of them just gave me massive anxiety. I couldn't even drive my car. One of them actually made me nearsighted. driving down the road. It's like, wait, I can't read the highway signs. Right? It's like, right. One of them messed up my liver. It's like, yeah. Exactly. And so late in the process, I'm like, we're running out of medications to try, right? Like if I don't, like if these next couple don't really help me out, then it's like, I've got to figure out which of the other ones I'm willing to deal with the side effects of. It's like, that's not a particularly a prospect of like, okay, how screwed up am I willing to be? If that's the best I could do, that's not a particularly comfortable revelation to come to. But fortunately, we were able to find something that works really well, and like I got myself in a really good spot. But even that's like, okay, my sleep's kind of messed up, so like I got to deal with that in a different way. Like this doesn't work so much. So it's still a juggling act. But what I realize is like problems have solutions, right?
Absolutely.
And there's nothing I can do to change the fact that I'm bipolar, right? So that's not the problem. Problem is, given I'm bipolar, how the frick did I just live life and navigate things and get what I need, right? And that's a problem set I can work on, right? So part of it is like, I don't have anything on my calendar before 10 a.m. Nobody can put anything on my calendar before 10 a.m. Why? Because I have no idea when I'm able to get up and be functional in the morning. Right? Sometimes it's 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm good to go. Other times it's like 9:55. I'm dragging myself out, throwing on a shirt and hopping on my first call. I have no idea. There's no way for me to protect. So I just give myself that space,
Right.
It's just, just figuring out like what works, what doesn't, what's the left or right limits, like where's your space to play, and then making the most of it when you're there.
I like how you said sometimes your brain doesn't allow you to get past it. And like I said, I'm an IT, so I immediately thought about a firewall, like a really great firewall. Just you may get past one piece of it, or you may unlock one door, but there's so many different layers and so many different protocols that you got to unlock or just deal with or handle properly as well to even move forward to the next, right? Because if you don't handle this one thing first, and this next door is not going to open for you, right? And so I kind of I appreciate you sharing that, because it's especially for men, right? It's tough for men to be vulnerable and saying I'm broken, or I need help, right? Or I want to fix this, and letting somebody else know, hey, I have an issue, I need to fix it. Can you help me? And like you said you're a hypnotist. We're gonna talk about you being a hypnotist, right? But going to somebody else to help you. When you said it, you was just like, that was kind of frustrating, because I'm sure like you was like, I know how to do it. I can do it for everybody else, right? I've done it for other people probably, but I do it for me. It just now I'm sure that's like a pain in the butt, man.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, like the point about men like having a hard time asking for help, like that's true and it's not. Like men have absolutely no problem asking for help when it comes to like, bodybuilding or jobs or all this stuff, right? But because we have this idea that as men, we're not supposed to be emotional, right? We're not supposed, like feelings aren't a thing for us, right? Or like, we're not supposed to pay attention to that. Or like feelings are somehow less than reason. Like we're supposed to be rational, right?
Right.
And there's reasons for that, right? Like if you're a highly emotional guy, men are built for violence. Let's just own it. Men are built for violence. That's just how we're built, right? And so you have somebody who's like emotionally unstable. That's really dangerous, because they don't have control over the emotions. They don't have control over the violence. Like that's bad. That's a bad thing all around, right? So men are socialized to be able to control their emotions and control how we react to our emotions. That's necessary. Fair enough. Cool. But along the way, if you diminish the importance of emotions, now you got a real problem, because we have emotions for a reason. They're telling us what's going on in the world. They're telling what the problems are we're facing. They're trying to give us signals of what we're supposed to be doing. So if you ignore them completely, now there's stuff you're blind to. Your mind can't tell you about, right? The other piece is, okay, I'm only going to feel the good stuff. I'm not going to feel the bad stuff, right? The sadness and regret and so forth, just shove that down. Okay, great. Now your mind can't tell you about problems, right? And oh, by the way, if an entire section of the human experience is blocked off from you, you're not allowed to even be human. Right. So it's like, okay, as a man, I'm not allowed to be human. It's like, no, screw that. Right. It's like, oh, men don't cry. That means makes your life less tough. It's like, there's a documentary on Netflix called The Hornet's Nest, talking about airborne guys going to Kringle Valley in Afghanistan, coming back, and they're holding the funeral. Right. And like afterwards, like one of the senior list guys sitting there, he's just like bawling, just on his knees, just freaking bawling. Right. And like 3 or 4 guys come over to surround him, they put their hands on him, like comfort him and so forth and so on. It's like, you want to tell me that guy's weak, or that guy's not a man?
Right.
Good freaking luck. Right.
Man.
And to me, it's a sign of immaturity. and a man if he can't feel. It's a sign of immaturity if he can't acknowledge that he has weaknesses. Like, how are you supposed to be accountable as a man if you can't acknowledge your feelings, your weaknesses? How can you be accountable? You can't, right?
Man.
You're just flat out lying to yourself, which means you're lying to everybody around you. Man. So how can anybody trust you if you can't even trust yourself? So it's one of those things, signs of maturity of like, yes, I am not perfect. Yes, I have feelings. Yes, I need to deal with these. Yes, there are issues that need to deal with. But at the same time, we got to deal in a different way, right? We can't deal with them in that sort of feminine way of like, let me just talk about my feelings. That's not helpful. We're problem solving machines. We're there to solve problems, just not run our mouth, right? And sometimes you just got to like talk things out and just like blow off steam, fair. But like, okay, once that's done, great. Now let's figure it out, right?
Man.
And so we have to go about things in a different way, and it's a little bit harder to find that kind of help.
Yeah, so I think I've been blessed, or I was raised by all women. I have my mom, my sister, and she had 2 daughters, so it was like 4 females around me, and my dad and my brother just went around. They had their own issues going on, right? And I was just able to be a lot more emotionally intelligent than most guys, and I didn't understand it. I would cry sometimes, but I would cry tears of joy, and I'm like, because I'm happy, because I'm ecstatic, things are going the way I want them, and I'm just really feeling that emotion. And I allowed myself to cry, and I was like, oh, I like these tears of joy, right? But then you can't, again, like I'm a guy, so I can't just be going around crying because I'm happy all the time, right? Because now you're going to be looked at as weak and soft and a target, right? And so, and I also understand that sometimes I make some of my better decisions when I am emotional because I understand my emotions and I understand how I feel, how I want to feel, how this is going to make me feel in the future, right? So I'm just blessed in that nature, but I've been around lots of other men, right, who just, like you say, just take those emotions and sweep them under the rug, put them in a backpack, and just carry them around. Whole time, their anger and their aggression and is just carrying them where they have a whole bag of tools that they just neglect to use, right? So that's pretty powerful.
Let me give you some perspective on that, because there's 2 pieces here. Like, number one, reason and emotion have different jobs. All right. Your emotional mind is really concerned about meaning. Like, what do things mean? Whereas your rational mind is concerned about facts. Right. And it's like the emotional part of your mind is like a pattern matching machine, right? It's looking at patterns over time, high level perspective narratives that run through things, right? So looking at the forest rather than the trees. Okay. And so if you're ignoring that part of your mind, you're ignoring that larger perspective. Right. And you're getting wrapped up in the details, right? Which is where men like to play, because this thing we can see right in front of us, the thing we control and the thing we work on, right? That thing we can't really play with as much. So what happens a lot of times is like we think one thing, we feel another. So we think one of them is correct and one of them is wrong. It's like, no, they're both correct. They're just seeing things from different perspectives, right? So that emotion you feel is incredibly valuable because it's telling you what things look like when you take a step back. If you're not willing to look at that, not willing to leverage that, then you never really know where you are. You're in a frame you don't understand, fighting against something you don't understand. And so there's all these motivations, these reasons, these needs underneath that you're fulfilling and trying to make happen that you're not aware of. And the thing is, you could do the right thing or the wrong thing. You do it for the right reason, the wrong reason. If you don't know the reason you're doing something, you're doing the right thing for the wrong reason, you're going to do it wrong. Because the way you do it is to meet that underlying need. If you don't know what that is, how the heck do you supposed to do it right? You can't. Right?
Okay.
So that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is to look at this, we got this idea that emotions are pain. Right. And as men, if we're avoiding all the sadness and the regret and the shame, those are all extremely painful things, right? So we're motivated really heavily to avoid the emotional pain, right? Which means our mind shapes our life to keep us away from things that might push that button, right? And you talk about the anger. It's like, great. If you're going to hurt me, what's my response? I'm going to fight you. So somebody who's highly aggressive and a lot of capacity for violence that needs to protect themselves from emotional pain, what do? They use a lot of aggression to keep somebody from pushing the buttons, right? Because they can't stand that pain. So they got to keep any of those buttons being pushed. They got to keep everybody far away. So they use aggression to keep people far away, so they don't have those buttons pushed because they can't stand the pain. Is that strong?
Yeah. No.
Oh no, it's not. Like if you have to be that aggressive to protect yourself from getting hurt, how strong are you? How tough are you? Right?
Can you deal with the pain, right? Can you handle the pain? And function, right? Are you functioning? Are you functional, tolerating pain that you can't necessarily beat up or just stomp out? Right? And are you able to manage it? Are you able to fix it? Are you able to cope with it instead of just running away from it or ignoring it, right,
Yeah.
or throwing it back and just walking around with it. So
think about how much we praise guys who can stand a lot of physical pain, a lot of physical discomfort, a lot of physical challenges, right?
Macho man,
Why are we not doing the same thing on the mental side and the emotional side?
We should though.
Should.
We
Probably should.
Yeah. It'll probably make those macho men a little bit more tougher, right? Because I'm sure they are able to put themselves in a mental space where, you know, pain doesn't affect them. So now just imagine if they were able to use that same type of ingenuity or mental space when dealing with the rest of life. Right?
Oh yeah. If you haven't seen Sean Ryan, he's a podcaster, former Navy SEAL, former CIA paramilitary operator, right? He's a great interviewer. And he did an episode with a guy named Travis Haley, who's one of the Blackwater guys, right? Sniper, like this guy's freaking like a killing machine. It's ridiculous. And they were like talking about some really deep emotional stuff, right? This guy is like talking about like going through plant medicine stuff and like masculine, feminine, like divine masculine, divine feminine dynamics and stuff like that. And like getting into his feelings and dealing with all this trauma and all that kind of stuff. Sean Ryan's got all kinds of people on all the time talking about being suicidal, being like really deep, dark places and all this stuff. And it's like, no, like these guys go through it. And when they're on the side of it, when they've done that work, when they've like mastered that part, it's like, man, they're even more powerful, more deadly, more effective, right? More driven, more resilient, right? Because there's part of themselves that they don't have to hide from anymore. Part of themselves they don't have to deny, which means that's a problem set they can solve now. It's not going to ambush them. It's not in their blind spot, you know?
It's kind of, I just introduced my son to Dragon Ball Z. And everybody did Goku when he goes Super Saiyan, right? Because he's much softer than some of the other characters, right? But he's definitely stronger, right? And it's because he's able to, I would say, allows himself to feel, right? He uses his emotions, uses his heart, right? He uses some of the other talents that everybody he else he's fighting doesn't, necessarily have or use, right? That's a part of
Travis was talking about how like one of the pinnacles of like masculine development of that journey is developing compassion, right? Developing the capacity to love. It's like you find somebody who's like fighting for something he loves, who truly loves something, like that is a force of freaking nature, right? Like think about patriotism, fighting for your country rather than just fighting for you. Much bigger, much more powerful thing, right? Fighting for family, fighting for like your kids, fighting for your wife, fighting for your girlfriend. Like that is a much more powerful motivator. But in order to do that, you actually have to care about something you got to love, right? Which means you got to let yourself feel.
Yeah, that's a message for people, man. Like that's a message for guys all over. But again, especially in the day and age we're in, especially in the time that we're in, it's definitely not the touchy-feely era, but it probably should be because a lot's going on. We're not in a physical war, but we are definitely in an economic war soon to be, right? A little political war is always happening. So emotional, and they play on people's emotions or lack thereof, right? And they play on that quote unquote patriotism or whatever. And it's a new game, man. So let's talk about your hypnosis. So are you like a hypnotist? Do you put people to sleep and make them do funny jokes? And are you like at the fair?
That's boring to me. So I'd have to like charge you extra to make me, make you click on that stupid. It's like stage hypnosis is amazing. It's a lot of fun, right? That's not my bag. Like I'm just doing jokes just like that. But it's what most people see when you ask about hypnosis. Like, oh, that guy, right? And so there's this idea of like, oh, I'm going to take over your mind and make you do stupid stuff, right? And that's not actually what's happening. Hypnosis is a voluntary process. It's you deciding to allow me to lead you through an experience. Okay. And so what the stage hypnotist is doing even before he starts his routine, he's like talking to the audience, doing some jokes, doing some stuff like that. And he's looking to see who's responding, who's resonating, kind of wants to play the game. It's like, all right, you 7 guys, come on up here. You guys look like you want to play the game. Gets them up on stage and starts doing the hypnosis thing. And you're seeing who's responding, who's not. It's like, you're not, go away. You're not, go away. All right. I got 5 people here, all of whom are responding very well, which means that all of them want me to lead them through this experience. And all of them know they're going to be doing stupid stuff. All of them know they're going to be looking ridiculous. Right. So I found 5 people who want to look stupid in front of everybody else for the entertainment of everybody because they know what they're getting themselves into. Right.
Okay.
I got 5 people that want to play the game. Great. Off we go. Make the show. Right. Now that's not me. It's not my bag. It's like, okay, I'm all about figuring out like every autistic person has their like a thing. Right. And part of the reason why I come off as well as I do is that my thing is people. I want to know how people work. I want to know how your mind works. Because I've always had to figure that out in order to be able to navigate the world. Connection is one of the most important things to me. So I'm like, okay, great. Let's figure out what these really high level beliefs are that keep on coming up. This idea of like, I'm not good enough shows up in a million different ways, right? Well, what that is I'm not good enough being applied to a million different situations. So instead of playing whack-a-mole, why not just deal with that? So I fix I'm not good enough, then never shows up down here again, right? That's a lot of work I don't have to do. So your mind came to that conclusion. Right? You're young, you saw a pattern show up, saw things happening, everything kind of coalesced. It's like, okay, based on this stuff that I'm seeing, I must not be good enough. Fair enough. That way, if I know I'm not good enough, now I know how to navigate the world, right? Because who I am and how the world works determines what I need to do to keep myself safe and get what I need. Makes sense. So I got to figure out who am I? I got to figure out how the world works. And based on what I'm seeing, I'm going to draw these conclusions. Oh, it's like, oh, I'm not good enough. Why? Well, there's got to be something wrong with me. Why? Well, I'm powerless, I'm stupid, whatever that happens to be, right? I can't protect myself, right? Or this stuff's not available, I can never get it, so I must not deserve it, right? Whatever that happens to be. And once we come up with these conclusions, they stick, right? And from that point forward, we judge true and false based on what we already believe, which makes a couple of things really kind of hard. Because if we're judging true and false based on what I already believe, can we prove it wrong? Not really. Because anything that doesn't match is false by definition is ignored. So how is it supposed to prove it wrong if it's ignoring all evidence that is wrong? Right? That's really hard.
Okay.
That's why this stuff is so sticky, right?
Okay. So
rather than trying to do that from the outside in, I'm going to open up the door, go down there, and say, okay, great. You feel like you're not good enough. That's a belief you have. Great. Show me how you got to that conclusion. Show me the chain of logic that created that. Okay. This thing happened. I think I'm like weak. I can't protect myself. People don't like me. Whatever. Great. Fair enough. It's like you're on the playground, you're 5 years old, Billy pushes you down, everybody laughs at you. Easy if you're like, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I can't protect myself, I'm weak and powerless. Fair enough, right? But let's look at it this way. Billy's 8 and you're 5. Any way you can stop him from pushing you down? No. Fair enough. Just not, right? But the reality is you made it through that situation, right? Got the whole Gandhi, Martin Luther King thing. It's like what they do, they just took whatever came their way, just dealt with it, just endured it. And in doing that, just what they changed the world, right? Does that sound powerless and weak? Clearly not. It takes a lot of strength and resilience just to be able to endure what you can't prevent, right? Fair enough. All right, cool. But nobody lets me. It's like, well, 5 years old, it's jerks. Right? They are. It's like they're laughing at you. Why? Because it's freaking funny. Not because they hate you. It ain't got anything to do with you. They're just laughing because it's freaking funny and they're 5 years old and they're mean. Right. Okay, well, it's nothing to do with me. I'm not weak anymore. Great. Now that means I can move through the world in a different way. Now I can be good enough, right? So it's a matter of like exploring that chain of logic and then changing that to draw a different conclusion using the same data, right? And I'm an intelligence guy. It's been 23 years in intelligence. Intelligence is all about figuring out what people don't want me to know, putting together the puzzle when it's not obvious. And every answer I need is in the back of your head. So why am I guessing? Show me the answer.
Just tell me, right?
So I just cheat. Yeah, I just cheat.
So is that really hypnosis or is it just kind of So what's the definition?
To me, hypnosis is just a set of tools that allow me to get access, more direct access to your unconscious mind, typically by getting into an altered mental state called trance, right? And if you look at it kind of brainwaves, it's like you got the beta waves, where you're like waking state, alpha waves are kind of like a meditative state. Theta is that kind of like bridge between sleep and waking, that sort of like drowsy space in between, and then delta is sleep. Hypnosis is getting in that theta state. Okay. That sort of bridge between the conscious and the unconscious world, waking and sleep. So now I can talk to both of them at the same time. I can use it as a bridge across those, right? So now I have access to both. What you do when you're down there, that's the secret sauce. That's the magic. That's up to you, right? Some people use that, make people do stupid stuff on stage. I use this like, show me why you're doing what you're doing. You're doing it on purpose. There's a reason for it. Show me the reason. Because if I can understand that, I can change that, then you don't have to do the stupid stuff anymore, right? So use it more as a mechanical thing, as a explore the system, put the pieces of logic together, and then rewrite the stories, come to different conclusions. Because if you as a person go from I'm not good enough and I can't protect myself to I'm good enough and I'm strong, well, that means you can move through the world very differently. Right.
A whole new world.
Like it's a completely different world, right? And all we did was just change what some stuff means in your back of your head. That's it.
So Is that kind of like why people, when they say meditate, they kind of want you in that theta state? Because
Well,
go ahead.
no, again, meditation is kind of that alpha state. So it's sort of like it's slower than the beta waking state, but you're not down in theta.
Okay.
Right. It's hard to get down there on your own. There's self-hypnosis, things like that. And there's some forms of meditation like yoga nidra that get you down there. But the vast majority of meditation is getting that alpha state. Right. You're just slowing down the thoughts, slowing down the emotions, just kind of getting to a place where you're like centered and calm and you can kind of let things go. Right. But it doesn't necessarily get you access to the unconscious mind. That's hard to do on your own. Like it's hard to be the surgeon and the patient at the same time. You know what I mean? Right. The more active your conscious mind is, the less active your unconscious mind can be. So if you want consciously directive trance, like how's that really supposed to work? It doesn't typically work very well. So there's a certain amount of control you have to let go, because basically what you're doing is you're taking the conscious mind and putting it in the back seat and let the unconscious mind drive. There can only be one guy driving the car at the time. Right.
Absolutely.
So it's about shifting who's running the show so that you can play with a different part of your mind and do different work.
Okay. That's neat. Never thought about that. So how did you come about, becoming a hypnotist and then using your superpower, right? Using your superpowers for good instead of
for good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was doing a lot of work in 2019 and 2020, especially trying to figure out the dating thing. And one of the groups I was in, there's a hypnotist. Let's talk about like toxic shame and emotional baggage. Like, well, raised Catholic, got some of that. So sat down in this session with him and just felt lighter, carrying around 50 pounds of stuff, get rid of 20 pounds, everything's easier. Right. It's about that time in my career, I'm realizing, the world doesn't want to be saved. Time to move on. I thought about becoming a psychologist, but that's like 6 years and $500,000 to get my PhD, which is unappealing in your 40s, right? I still wouldn't be licensed as a psychologist yet if I'd gone down that road, right? But I got certified as a hypnotist in like 6 weeks for $2,000. I was like, all right, cool. Let me go ahead and just like dip my feet and see if there's something I want to do. Well, I got certified in February 2020. 2 weeks later, everything shuts down because of the pandemic. Right. Everything I was doing is classified. I can't work from home. So I got nothing but time. Right. So, threw it up online, a bunch of these groups like, hey, I just got certified. Who wants to play? Realized it's like, oh, well, getting some interesting results. People are seeing some pretty big changes really fast. Cool. Did some more training, launched my business in April 2020, went full time in October 2020. Been doing it full time ever since. Right. But it's that idea of like, I can help people. I can make changes. I can do it faster than most other ways. And I'm good at it. Right. Because I get to leverage that superpower, looking at belief structures. Do that stuff all the time, right? Reverse engineering systems, reverse engineering black boxes, figuring out stuff I don't want, people don't want me to know. Easy day, right? So it's like I said, it's kind of cheating because I know where the answers are. I just got to ask the right questions, right? And I know how to do that.
That's neat because you had a large pool to play with. When you started, because everybody was home and a lot of people needed to figure out what am I going to do with myself. It was a lot of time to realize who I am, what I want. How am I going to start moving differently? And this guy said he can help me. Well, let's see what he's talking about, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and you said you weren't able to work because, I'm a contractor. Some places I didn't want to work anymore because I remember working in a building, in a room, and it was like, I don't necessarily enjoy it. I like sun. I like getting up and going outside sometimes. I have my phone or whatever. So I definitely get that too. So, how has it been navigating since the world's been open and like growing your business and things like that?
Well, the interesting thing is like, because I started everything online, like I've done everything over Zoom my entire career. There's no reason for me to get a physical office if I can do things over Zoom. Right. Which means my clientele has always been worldwide. A lot of these guys, like I had clients in Australia, I had clients in Middle East, I had clients in South America, lots of folks in Europe. I had one guy in Siberia I was working with, that was interesting. Having a conversation with a dude in Siberia, like right after I got out of the, working classified stuff. I'm like, okay. But he's a musician in Siberia that worked at a pharmacist. Like this guy is not a threat, But it's not it. Right. And so, up until about, late 2022, early 2023, that's the space I was working with, like a mid self-improvement space. That got really toxic after a while. I was like, all right, these are not my people anymore. Time to leave. And so I was working that transition to start working more with like entrepreneurs and business people when the bipolar thing hit. So it's like, all right, cool. I'm dealing with that for a year and a half. So I've really only been up and running again for about 5, maybe 6 months. Basically had to rebuild things from scratch. That's not the easiest thing, but hopping on podcasts like this, getting, networking on LinkedIn, get my name out there, working with some different groups on the psychedelic side, really trying to making a lot of connections in the veteran community, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And I think this is really help, so just exploring the options, getting the word out there, exploring what's possible, and exploring what kind of synergies there are. And it's like every tool has a job, right? Every step of this process, there's something that's probably going to be best for you, right? So what I do is not something you start with all the time, right? It's like, okay, I got to do this, which gets me ready for this, which gets me ready for this. It's like, okay, now I can do this work, and then you're on to something else, right? So it's about figuring out the sequencing. Let's figure out like, where do I fit in that process? Telling people it's like, hey, this is available. These are limits to this. This is why this doesn't work. This is why you need to do this other thing here. And it's an education piece, and it's just a matter of just getting out there, hit the pavement, getting the word out, doing what I can.
So you said the self-improvement got kind of toxic. How does that happen?
Like the dating space, that's sort of like dating self-improvement stuff, like a lot of the red pill stuff and the pickup artist stuff,
So you weren't like Kevin Samuels, anything like that?
Oh yeah. Watch some of his stuff, right? The Tate brothers. I never really liked the Andrew Tate guys. They just always drove me nuts. But
weird.
Yeah. There's a certain amount of like, that is not the kind of guy I want to be. That is not the life I want to live.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I talked to Frank
about host is not my jam.
Man, I talked to Frank about it a lot. Like, these guys couldn't keep a woman if they wanted to. Like, I don't know. I think that like, so most relationships are about, can you get a girl? Yes. All right. Now, can you keep a woman? Are you able to maintain a healthy relationship? Like, that's the part of the game that they totally ignore.
That's because it's not in their world. It's not in their world. If you look at the philosophy, like every system, the purpose of a system is what it does, right? And so the red pill philosophy is designed to produce a particular result. And that is basically access to sex without ever being emotionally vulnerable. Okay? Because there's a couple of things that they believe in that space. It's like, number one, they believe that women are hypergamous. You can't really trust them. Like, the second you see a better option, they're out the door, right? So I can't invest in one. No point in that, right? Number two, they also believe that a man can never be loved the way he wants to be loved. Okay, well, if that's the case, then why am I going to try and build a long-term relationship? Right? They're not going to stick around when things get hard. I can't actually get what I need, right? So the only thing they can really offer me is like sex, sandwiches, and clean the house. So like, why would I try to build anything better, right? A lot of these guys have been really hurt. Everyone got hurt again. Which means, it does. You can see it so clear as day once you can recognize it, right? But what that means is like, they're never going to put themselves in a position to be hurt again, which means they can't be vulnerable, which means they can't build anything long term. It's not possible, right? They can't even conceive of partnership. It's not possible. So they never bother trying, right? So what do? They have to define it as useless. They have to define it as dangerous to justify not going down there.
And guys like that and content like that is a detriment to men all around the world.
Here's the thing. They're not wrong about some stuff, though, because they're really right about some of the we have to give them their due. They're right about some stuff. They're right about how toxic women do. They're right about how messed up things are. They're right about how they, make them take advantage. They're right about some of the dangers they present. But they don't give the other side of it. They don't give them the women who do. They don't give them that positive, right? Because doing that would mean they'd have to take that risk, and that's not worth it, right? So for me, like, understanding that part of things actually really helped. Understanding how female attraction works actually really helped. But then, that's the limit of what that does. Now I have to use other tools because I've got other goals. I want to get married again. There's no way in hell they can help me. A lot of stuff they teach is going to be completely counterproductive in that space, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's like, okay, this is given what I want. Like, I can't stay here anymore. They can't help me. I got to go somewhere else. But a lot of stuff you see, like in the regular dating space, like a lot of stuff is wrong. Okay, I'm gonna be the nice guy. Nope, that'll work. Right? So you kind of have to Bruce Lee it, right? Take what's useful, leave the rest, add what's uniquely yours, right? So you go there, you take the stuff that's useful, because there is useful stuff there. They're not wrong about everything, but you leave the rest, and you come over here to the marriage, the traditional dating stuff, and you take what's useful, and you leave the rest, because there's a lot of useless stuff there too, right?
Right.
And you kind of have to build your own thing, right? Which sucks because it's hard. But the reality is, if you're looking at all that stuff, like, you're not a particularly healthy person, so you're going to have to figure out how to become healthy, which means you have to figure out what healthy relationships look like. There's no good example of healthy relationships out there, because everybody's talking about relationships and people who are trying to figure out how to do it, which means they don't know. Right? Yeah. It's a problem. So it's an interesting problem to solve. But just understand the limits. But give them their due at what they're right about.
Okay, fair enough. So the dangerous part is, like you said, they're going to show you how to
Attractive.
get girls, but they're not going to show you how to keep, how to maintain, how to get
Yes.
healthy in the same kind of space. So
Yes.
I understand what you're saying. Yes. So yes, they do have some valid
Yeah.
points, and they are,
Yeah.
like you say, correct in some things. It's just
Yep.
by me being an emotional, intelligent individual, I understand that
Oh yeah.
that's never gonna be the way I operate, right?
Exactly.
And I've never had some of the guys they're talking to. I don't have those issues, right? Some of those guys have
Right.
self-esteem issues, confidence issues, um, financial issues, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
right? Those issues are they're not even talking to me per se, right? So
Exactly.
I guess that's why I feel the way I feel about them. So
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And again, it's a situation. It's like, okay, what is your biggest stress point? What is your biggest pain point? Right. And for a lot of the guys going there, it's like not being able to actually get the kind of sex and the kind of relationship they need in terms of that desire. Right. So they're going for, that's their biggest thing. That's the biggest thing they're trying to figure out is like high desire, right? And high sexual availability. Right. Whereas if you're going for more long-term relationship stuff, that's important, but it's not the most important thing. Other things are more important. Right. Or they're going for like women as a status of like, let me get the hot chicks because that's going to tell everybody how awesome I am. Right. Okay, cool. You want to measure your self-worth by the kind of women you're around? Okay, enjoy. That's going to work out for you real well in the long run, right? Right. So there's because of the goals they have, because of the way they're seeing the situation, they're going to go for certain tools. They're going to find a way to make that work. And the red pill stuff, the pickup artist stuff, works phenomenal for that. And it works really badly for a lot of other things, right? But you got to use the right tool for the job. They're using the right tool for the job they want to do, right? But if that's not the job you want to do, if that's not the end state you want to create, you got to use different tools.
I definitely understand. So, now I get it. It's just the way of the world. But again, they're content creators, so they found their lane and they just
outrage sells.
Man. Don't. I don't want to speak on that because the politics.
Yeah. And, that's part of why I left. Is like, man, it's like I have not heard anything new in like a year. And then like, okay, well then if you're not coming up with anything new, if nothing's changing, it's like then you don't have anything really to add. You're stagnating, right? And then I haven't seen anything new since I left at 22. So that's like 3 years, 4 years, like nothing really changing, nothing new, no innovation, just saying the same freaking thing. It's like, okay.
So is that how you ended up talking to entrepreneurs? And what do you do for entrepreneurs? Like, how do you help them?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of entrepreneurship in that space, right? There's a lot of people that are trying to make their own businesses and stuff like that. So I've always kind of been involved in that community. And as an entrepreneur myself, like they're always kind of around that situation. So entrepreneurs have a few different issues that they face, right? Okay. In my book, I talk about like two traps you kind of get into: the cage and the treadmill, right? The cage is like lights are on, roof over your head, bills are paid, things are okay. But there's a gap between where you are and where you should be, right? Everything you really want to go for, everything you really kind of need is kind of off limits. You're kind of boxed in by your pain, your insecurity, your fear, right? There are a lot of people that they got that big dream, they got ideas, and they just can't make it happen, right? The procrastination, the self-sabotage, and just holding themselves back. Great. Let me go ahead and get that cage, open up that cage for you to where you actually do that, make that safe, give you the opportunity to actually fulfill that potential, right? The sneakier one is what I call the treadmill. All right, treadmills, you got this Batman origin story, right? Got that Russell situation, you came in grown up, but you found a way out, right? There's something you're good at, right? Athletics, academics, entrepreneurship, whatever that is, right? So you grab that and you start running, right? And you're good at it. You love doing it, getting a lot of rewards for it, right? Everybody telling you how awesome you are. It's like, how do I get to be you? So it's really hard to understand you've got a problem or understand there's anything wrong. But what you'll notice is like, you just keep moving that goalpost. Reach goal. Okay, I don't feel so good anymore. Got to set another goal. Got to set another goal. Bigger and more and more and more and more. It's never enough. And you can't take your foot off the gas, because you take your foot off the gas, all those thoughts and turns, gremlins kind of catch up with you, demons catch up with you. It's like, so you're constantly running. Chase the carrot or you get the stick, right? Which means typically the rest of your life is mess, because there's only one thing you're really allowed to do. Your relationships aren't that great. Sometimes your health isn't that great. Sometimes your interests are really narrow. There's like one thing you get to do: take your foot off the gas, terrifies the crap out of you. So what else are you supposed to be? And ultimately, you never actually get to feel that fulfillment that you're really chasing, right? So for them, it's like, okay, great. Now I got to take away the stick of the carrot, so you're actually able to do more. So you get off the treadmill and think bigger, right? So you can do something more than just put points on the board to justify to yourself how good you are, right? And so either of those could be a trap. And for the guys who are on the treadmill, it's like, okay, it's about fulfillment. It's about actually feeling like you're enough for once, right? There's a guy named Andrew Wilkinson. He's a venture capitalist up in Canada, wrote a book called Never Enough. It's this journey from being a barista, making $6 an hour, to being a billionaire.
Wow.
Billionaire, right?
Okay.
You grew up poor. And it's like, man, all I do is make enough money, and that's going to make the problems go away. And he's sitting there, he's a billionaire. He's like, I am just as insecure and anxious as I was whenever I started.
Man.
Right. And he started looking around. It's like, wait, all my friends that I know, they're billionaires, same way. Guys, 100 million, same way. 10 million, same way. Multi-billionaires, same way. Every single one of these people insecure still after all that. I'm like, well, if you're insecure after being a billionaire, then you can't earn your way out of insecurity. That's not how that works, right? Everybody says you can. Clearly, that's not true, right? So why not hop off the treadmill early? Why not find a way to have that fulfillment, get rid of that insecurity, the anxiety, actually have that stability, actually have the fulfillment and joy, so you can move on and do something else, right? The world needs a heck of a lot less Alex Hormozzi's, right? And Gary V's and Grant Cardone's, and a heck of a lot more Elon Musk's, right? Elon Musk can't keep score, right? He's trying to preserve the light of humanity, right? He's trying to get us interplanetary. That's his goal, right? Whatever you may think about him, on a personal level, what you may think about it, the way he goes, his goal is like, I want to get us off the freaking planet so we don't like nuke ourselves to death and like erase humanity. That's a much bigger goal than how much money can I make.
Fair enough.
Right. And we need more people that think in that way. We need more people thinking of like, how do I change the world? How do I make it bigger impact? Right. How do I make it impact in a way I can't measure? Like in terms of happiness, in terms of potential, in terms of like lessening suffering, right? In terms of like opening up new avenues for human development, Those are things you can't do if you're keeping score.
That's something unique. What book am I reading? The Psychology of Money, right? Because I'm on the Gary V and Alex Hormozzi train, right? Trying to get enough money. I kids, it's the way of the world. But
yeah.
Also, he mentions in the book that there are like a handful of individuals that changed the whole dynamic of the way the world is now. Gandhi, Tesla, Martin Luther King, some of those other guys.
Yeah.
Bezos, right? And like you're saying, Musk, right? Like it's even Hitler, right? Even a small section of people who done something in their time, however small or long it was, that has changed the trajectory of the world. And if there were more people who had that type of focus or understanding or even just kind of drive, just imagine how many people could change in a lifetime, right? Because there's billions of people who live in a particular, time frame. If each one of those had a task or a focus or a goal that they kind of live their life for, there's no telling how far or how much better humanity would be as a whole.
Yeah.
And I would say, me and Frank are techie, so we always think, or I always say, like, there's no reason for America and China to have so much power, so much influence, so much technology, and they just can't come together and say, let's make this whole thing better, right? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Of course there is. Humanity's not supposed to. So I don't know if you're a Christian guy, but like Bible, there's that idea of like the Tower of Babel, right? Building the tower to God, and everybody's coming together, right? And everybody's doing the one thing, and God blows the tower up, scatters everybody, makes them speak a million languages, right? Now, I assume God's not a jerk. So there's got to be a reason for it, right? And the thing that I kind of came up with is this idea of like, there's not supposed to be one answer. We're supposed to have a billion different ways of doing things because we're trying to figure out what the best way is forward, which means we can't all work together. We can't all do the same thing. We need that competition. Evolution and development and moving forward is based on competition. Just the way it is, right? Now, hopefully we keep it like sub-nuclear, right? Let's not go there. But like, we need some competition. We need different goals so we can figure out how to like move forward, humanity forward as a species, right? It's not biological anymore. It's narrative, it's ideas, it's how to live your life, right? That's how we're competing evolutionary these days and have been for quite a while. But that requires competition, right? The other thing I'll say is this, like, purpose and mission is going to be a far bigger driver than money ever will, right? Because if you're on the treadmill, you're driven, absolutely driven. It's a powerful motivator because you're running from pain, right? And the only thing you do is run as far away, as fast away, as directly away as possible, right? That's what the problem. That's what the trap is. You can't take your foot off the gas because that sucker cups up. But if you've got purpose, you've got mission, you're just being pulled forward by inspiration, right? And that's a much more powerful motivator, right? So I've got a mission. I've got a purpose. My mission is to end human suffering and unleash the fullness of human potential to the maximum extent possible for me to engineer his lifetime. I don't care about making $1 billion. I don't care about making $1 million. I don't give it. That's irrelevant. Like compared to that, what is money? Yeah, I got to pay my bills. Yeah, there's some stuff I'd like to do. I'd like a nice house, right? I want to go on vacation. But aside from this, it's not a motivator for me, right? I got something bigger on the plate that I want to do. I got something bigger I want to create for the world, right? Mm-hmm. That's much more inspiring, much more motivating. That definitely get me out of bed a heck of a lot easier than have I made $1 million yet.
So I heard this quote: "Are you being driven or are you driving?"
Yeah.
Right. That's what I hear right there. Like, are you being driven or are you driving? Yeah. Like, are you just being pulled by your fears or are you being driven by your inspirations, like you said, your goals?
Are you the one driving the boat or is the boat driving you?
Man, that's so powerful. That's so powerful, man. We're kind of on the same wavelength. I appreciate you and your vulnerability, right? Because guys, like I said, most guys aren't willing to say that, hey, I had a problem. And I knew I needed help, and I sought help, and now I'm better, and now I'm here to try to help other people, right? And
absolutely,
life is life, right? It is what you make it. So, and you're making it your life, right? You're taking control and taking onus of it and making it yours, and I appreciate that. So our final question here, figuring shit out, is what is something you're trying to figure out now, moving forward? We asked you what was your figuring shit out moment in the beginning, like how you got started. So now, at this particular moment, what are you trying to figure out moving forward?
What the future looks like. Like for the vast majority of my life, I knew I was never going to get what I needed or what I wanted. So wanting something is like, why bother? Like, why bother wanting something I'm never going to get it, right? So now it's possible, like, okay, I can want something. The heck do I want? And the thing is, like, I kind of don't know that it matters. Like, I've got some very simple needs. Like, I want to get married. I got the kind of idea of the kind of partnership I have. I got an idea of the impact I want to make. I got an idea of what some pieces are of the puzzle. Other than that, I'm a pretty simple guy. So part of it is just kind of like me letting it unfold, but part of it is like, I also have to create a direction. I also got to have my preferences and stuff. And that's an interesting thing to kind of explore and play with, It's a nice problem to have, whatever they want.
Yeah. That's another one I like to share with my children. Like, know what you want. It's okay to want something, but know what you want, because they'll go in the kitchen and say, I want, they don't want anything. Hey, Dad, can I, they don't want anything, but it's like, know what you want, and it's okay to know what you want. It's okay to have desires. It's okay to want things, but you know what you want, and then once you know what you want, hey, go after it.
Go for it.
Right? It's yours for the taking. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, sir. Let people know how they can find you. I didn't see a website on your message here.
Yeah. So my website is www.ryanthehypnotist.com. Do a free 45-minute consultation, figure out what's like working and what's not in your life right now. Tell you why it's not working and why things haven't changed the way you want it to. Talk about getting you to a place where you want to be. I also wrote a book called Winner Peace: How to End Inner Conflict and Make Success Inevitable. And it's all about kind of how I took this journey, like what things look like, and walks you through the changes I do for people, kind of walks you through the theory and where you end up that I do with folks, to where you're not at war with yourself. Don't have to run from your emotions. You're done fixing yourself. You're done healing yourself. It's just time to make things happen.
Nice. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on. Frank, you missed a good one, my boy. He's an you missed a good one. And this is episode 106 in the books. I thank you, sir. Appreciate you. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.